for actually being on the Money and Business Show. But tell us a little bit more about who the World Bank and what was its purpose for this financial institution to be born out of.
It's hard to know where to start. Let me start at what was going on in 1944, which is when the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund were created.
Yeah.
They're called the Bretton Woods institutions because there's a ski resort in New Hampshire, United States, where 44 countries came and established what they call the Bretton Woods institutions. And I fell for the stated purpose of the Bretton Woods institutions when I graduated from the University of Amsterdam with a degree in development economics. I landed there because I was a kid in high school and college during the Vietnam War era. And when they were saying love it or leave it, I thought that I really wanted to get out. So I went to Amsterdam and studied development economics, but I had always wanted to be a lawyer, too. So I applied to Harvard and Yale and got into both of them and wrote a letter to Harvard saying that I was going to go there. But I had in mind that I really wasn't. And so I went to Holland and I got admitted to the University of Amsterdam. And I wrote Harvard and said I'd like to take a deferred admission because I think it would be good to study economics in Holland. I wasn't saying anything about the Vietnam War to them. But, you know, they knew that a lot of people were leaving the country at that time. Anyway, so Harvard wrote back and said, you told us that you were coming and then you didn't show up. So even though you wrote us a month to tell us, you know, beforehand to tell us that we should admit somebody off the waiting list, we're never going to readmit you. So anyway, that didn't bother me too much. It bothered my parents a lot, but it didn't bother me. So I stayed happily in Holland for a couple of years. And then I started realizing that this Yale Law School credential could be very, very helpful if I wanted to do what I said I wanted to do. So I took a leave of absence from Amsterdam and went and started law school, did a year at Yale, and then I took a leave of absence from Yale and went back and finished up in Amsterdam. This is not to bore your listeners, but just to give them an idea of what I had in mind right back from the get-go.
No, that is perfect, Karen. I needed to know that because it wasn't really clear about your past. Go ahead.
Well, you know, people right now are questioning my motives. They say if a person was at Yale, then they obviously are part and parcel of this cartel. And yet people have to know that what drew me to Yale was the fact that I figured that credential could serve me very well with what I had in mind. I've been remarkably consistent.
So why the World Bank? Why the World Bank?
It turns out that I was absolutely right about the World Bank because the real purpose for the World Bank was to make sure that the world's wealth that was being hidden by Ferdinand Marcos, who put the world's wealth on deposit for 50 years.
From the Philippines,
That's because he wanted to extinguish all rights of the what's known as the black nobility. Those are the rulers who have bloodlines that stretch all the way back, and those people think they're entitled to whatever is going on, whatever wealth there is, whatever is good, it belongs to them, and the rest of humanity is welcome to have the crumbs. And just so people have a good understanding about how these people move through space, they have dug all kinds of bunkers because they don't care if there's a nuclear holocaust. They will simply go into those bunkers. They've outfitted those bunkers and equipped them so that they think that they will be able to inherit the earth after there's a scorched earth and the rest of us are eradicated.
Unbelievable.
That's how they move.
You know,
that's what they think.
I thought the World Bank Group, you know, had like two goals. This is what I was reading on their site. One was end extreme poverty by decreasing the percentage of people living on less than $1.25 a day, and still going on, and promote shared prosperity, you know, for fostering the income growth of the bottom 40% for every country. Now, this hasn't happened. Actually, it's the opposite. right?
What happened is that
what
the
happened here?
World Bank institution was hijacked by this banking cartel. And
Who is the banking
describe
cartel?
the banking cartel
Yes,
for a
go
minute.
ahead. Who are they?
Are you going back to Walter Wriston?
No.
Okay. Do you remember Walter Wriston? He was head of Bank
I've
of
forgotten totally who he is.
Bank
but
of
I'm not going
America.
back to
He
that.
became head of the World Bank in the 70s. That's who I was thinking you were referring to.
Okay, but Brian, she's...
No, look, the World Bank that I know, I got from Aaron Brochus, who was the longest-serving general counsel, and he was a Dutch lawyer who was working in the Dutch embassy when the Bretton Woods conference was held. And if you read the history of that conference, you'll see that he's mentioned in a footnote. And so he gave me the operation manual for the World Bank. He told me that the key to the World Bank is not the presidency, but the legal department, because the legal department is sitting there right between an internal board of directors. The World Bank it's a different international organization than any other, and the IMF. They're really the same institution. It's just that they're across the street from each other, and the Europeans get to handpick the managing director of the IMF, and the United States gets to handpick the president of the World Bank. But that ended in 2010. But anyway, let's get back to what the World Bank and the IMF were created to do and about their board of directors. Their boards are resident and run the place. And the biggest 8 countries, the biggest economies, get to handpick who their executive director is. So that's the United States, Germany, France, United Kingdom, Saudi Arabia, China, Japan. I always forget somebody else. But anyway, the top 8 economies. And then the rest of the countries get clumped into what is called constituencies. And if you read what the articles are, which is supposed to govern how the World Bank and the IMF are run, the boards, the countries themselves are supposed to run the place. And what happened 1 year into the existence of the World Bank is that there was a special understanding that the board was going to serve as a rubber stamp and was going to vote any proposal by the president up or down. They were not going to be an active board. And I went to them. I went to the Russians, actually, in 2009, and also the Norwegians. You know, I had gotten to know the boards very, very well. They had wanted me to be their general counsel, and I was prevented from doing that, but I stayed in touch with them, and I told them that I understood full well what was going on. Let me give you an example of what was going on. When the president of the World Bank, who came from the Pentagon, Paul Wolfowitz, gave a 30% pay raise to his girlfriend, the board didn't like that, and they fired Paul Wolfowitz. And just as they were firing him, any member of the board who went to the same bordello that Eliot Spitzer had frequented when he lost his governorship, that was the New York Madam, were told that that information was going to be made public if they went forward with it. I found this out because I happened to be in Holland, I speak Dutch, when the man who represented the Dutch government, who had formed the Dutch government, that's Herman Wijfels, went on record in a newspaper, and then the next day, his predecessor, Ad Melkert, who by that time was working for the UN Development Program, Ad Melkert was interviewed on a television program, and they said, Ad, is what Herman said true? And Ad said, well, you know, they never really bothered me because I'm kind of a boring guy. But yes, it's absolutely true because I knew other executive directors who were very unhappy about this blackmail. So when you're hearing now about the blackmail that is coming out of the National Security Agency, this has been going on for a very, very long time. They're only going public with it now. But I came back from Holland. First I went to the dean of the Yale Law School. Then I went to the Congress. I had been dealing with the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations, which at that point was chaired by Joe Biden and had Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama as junior senators on it. I went to them with this information, and they said, go to the Treasury Department. So I went to Kenneth Peale, and Kenneth Peale did absolutely nothing. And I told Kenneth Peale that the chickens were going to come home to roost, Let me go in at great length at the most important information that I'm going to give your listeners.
Do you know what, Karen? Can you just we have to pay our bills. Can you just hold on to that thought, and I'm going to ask you again for that information, because I'm sure it's extremely important information. But just stay on the line. I'm with co-host Brian Wolofsky. My name is Samuel Zerzer for the Money Mission Radio Shalom, CJRS 1650 AM Montreal. We'll be right back in 2 minutes.